is Board President Juan Armenta. This is the August 8th, 2022 meeting of the Physician's Assistant Board being conducted by web.
This meeting is being recorded.
And at this point, I would like to call this meeting to order. We are conducting it by WebEx due to the ongoing COVID situation as allowed by direction of the governor. So with that, the meeting is now called to order. Ms. Gompers, would you please call the roll?
Good morning. Sorry, I just pressed print. I hope that's not too loud. Charles Alexander.
Present.
Juan Armenta.
Present.
Jennifer Carlquist.
Present.
And it was my understanding that Sonia Early is absent. Randy Hawkins. Could we do a mic check with Randy Hawkins?
My understanding is Dr. Hawkins is having problems logging in. He should be in momentarily.
Oh, okay. Jed Grant.
Present.
Diego Nzunza.
Present. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can. Vasco Dion Kitt.
Present.
And that concludes the roll.
So, Ms. Gompers, it appears we do have a quorum, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. And again, we're doing this by WebEx. I'm sure all of us would like to see each other in person, but with the governor's permission, we are continuing this format for this meeting at least. And I guess the benefit is it does save the state money and our budget money. So that's a good thing. So the first thing the next thing we'll move to on the agenda would be item number 3, which would be consideration of approval of the May 9th, 2022 minutes. These are, of course, in all the materials. I'm sure everybody has had the opportunity to review them. Does anybody have any comments or changes they would like to note? Very well. Hearing no comments or changes, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes, or Michael, do we need public comment first?
Good morning, Mr. President. No, we can take public comment on the motion once it's been made and seconded.
Okay, that's what I thought. So would anybody like to make the motion? Good morning, Michael, by the way, thank you. Would anybody like to make the motion to approve the minutes on item number 3?
This is Dan. I make the motion to approve the minutes for item number 3.
Thank you, sir. Any seconds?
This is Jed. I'll make a motion to second. I'll second the motion to approve.
Very good. So the motion is before the board to approve the minutes on item number 3. Is there any public comment?
This is Ann Fisher. I'm serving as moderator this morning, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you have a comment about the minutes, you can look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, behind the 3-dot other options, type the word comment and click send. You also have the option to raise your hand by clicking the hand icon on your WebEx screen. If anyone has any comments on the minutes. And I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature?
Yes, please go ahead and close that feature. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, very well. The motion before the board, Ms. Gompers, if you'd call the vote, please.
Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Krolquist,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza,
Aye.
Vasco Dion Kidd.
Aye.
And that concludes the vote.
Very well. The motion obviously carries unanimously, so the board minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. So we'll move into item number 4, which is for public comment on items not on the agenda. Can we please have I suppose we should open the public conduit to allow for any public comments on items not on the agenda. Ms. Fisher, if you would, please.
Certainly. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone has any items to consider that are not on the agenda. And I will also take a moment to welcome and do a mic check with board member Dr. Hawkins. And Randy Hawkins, if your audio is connected, we can do a mic check.
Can you hear me now?
Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Very welcome.
And I do not see any requests for public comment. I can close that feature if you'd like.
Yes, please, Ms. Fisher. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, very good. That concludes number 4. Welcome, Dr. Hawkins. And I'm sure, Ms. Gompers, you've noted that Dr. Hawkins has appeared on the roll call.
I sure did.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we will move into item number 5, which is the only item under number 5. The President's report is the Dca Approved Waivers related to the practice of physician's assistants. As we know, with the state of emergency declared by the governor back on March 4th, 2020, related to COVID, there has been some waivers with respect to licensing and administration of COVID-19 vaccines in coordination with state and local vaccination efforts. The governor extended those with the 7th Amendment to the Declaration on March 11th, 2021, and those waivers continue presently. Those waivers and specifications are available on the board's website, if I'm not mistaken. Is that not correct, Ms. Khan?
That is correct.
All right, so if anybody in the public or anybody else has interest in the specifications of those waivers, they can refer to our website. The only other comment I have in the President's report is that for the foreseeable future, it looks like WebEx will be one of our features. So I would ask all the board members to keep that in mind in preparing for their meetings and, of course, access to technology. It has not been a problem. So thank you, everybody, for being diligent in that respect. So that will conclude item number 5, board president's comments. And item number 6 would be the executive officer's report by Ms. Khan. So,
Mr. President, I'm sorry. We will need to take public comment after each item. So we should take public comment on item 5 before moving to 6.
Thank you, Michael. So, Ms. Fisher, if you would open the conduit for public comment on item number 5.
Certainly. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment on the President's report, you may type the word comment in the text box and click send. And the other option would be to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And if there are any comments on the President's report. I do not see any requests for comment. I can close the Q&A if you'd like.
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm always reminded, Michael always reminds me why Jed, when we're meeting in person, always had a red label in front of his microphone about public comment. So um, I guess I should have one here on my desktop. So let's go to item number 6, the Executive Officer's Report from Ms. Khan. If you would, please, Ms. Khan.
Good morning, everyone. I will start off with office operations. The board is managing ongoing teleworking for staff while continuing to balance office operations. Next item is personnel. Effective July 1, 2022, Jasmine Dillon has been promoted to Staff Services Manager 1, SSM1 Specialist to serve as the Legislative and Regulatory Specialist for the board. This is the board's first SSM1 Specialist position. Historically, the incumbent tracking legislation and coordinating all rulemaking activities for the board has always been from the Associate Governmental Program Analyst position, which is AGPA classification. However, due to the demand of the position and the high-level involvement in the decision-making process, the position no longer can be sustained at an AGPA level. Jasmine joined the board on March 8, 2021 as a legislative and regulatory analyst. She has consistently demonstrated her ability to successfully assume increased responsibilities and works independently and tactfully while providing a broad range of high-level, complex, analytical, and consultative duties as they relate to the board's legislative and regulatory process. Please join me in congratulating Jasmine on her promotion. The next item is annual report. As fiscal year 21-22 came to an end, board staff worked diligently in submitting its annual report to the Department of Consumer Affairs. The annual report is an opportunity for the board to demonstrate its accomplishment, provide program information such as position counts, board membership, license requirements, fees, continuing education, licensing and enforcement statistics, and regulatory and legislative updates in the past 12 months. The report will undergo DCA's review and approval process before its publication. The next item is outreach. Board staff is looking forward to attending the California Academy of PA's CAPA conference, CAPACon, in Carlsbad, California. CAPACon will be held during Physician Assistant Week, October 6, 2022 to October 9, 2022. Staff will be available to answer licensee and student questions and disseminate laws and regulations booklet relating to the practice of physician assistants. We thank CAPA for the outreach opportunity and look forward to conducting more outreach events throughout the year to further the board's strategic goal of informing consumers, licensees, applicants, and other stakeholders about the practice and regulation of the physician assistant profession. The next item is information technology. Development of the instructional video to assist applicants with licensure is currently on hold. The DCA Public Information Officer assigned to assist the board with the production of the video has taken a promotional opportunity with another state agency. The development of the instructional video will resume once a replacement is hired. The next item is the redesigned board website is close to being completed. The site is currently undergoing a final accessibility check and will go live once the process is complete. The new website will include increased functionality, streamlined information presented, and more user-friendly interface. The last item is the board continues to utilize the subscriber alert system, social media accounts, and website to maximize outreach, which serve as the primary communication tools for licensees and members of the public. That concludes my report. I'll take any questions.
Rosanna, the outreach to COP at that convention, which board staff members are going to that?
Right now, it'll be the AEO, the Assistant Executive Officer, someone from licensing. I'll be the lead licensing analyst, and it'll be the legislative analyst. But we haven't confirmed yet as far as which staff, but these are the ones that I was hoping that we can send from different units.
Very well, thank you.
Dr. Hawkins, may I ask a question?
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
I apologize for not being able to ask a cogent question. Remember, there's a substantial amount of dialogue in the past about CAPA in the meeting, but I don't recall the specifics, but substantial dialogue about support, booths, and that sort of stuff. I just wonder if that was resolved, and this probably is not making any sense because I don't remember the specifics of it. Is there an issue with PA board attending Kappa and support in some capacity? Is this ringing any bells for anyone?
I believe, Doctor, what you're speaking to is that in the past we attempted to coordinate our board meetings at the same time as the convention. And because of the logistics not only of COVID, but of timing with them, I think that has, those two things have become unaligned. I think that's what you're speaking to, if I'm not mistaken, and perhaps Rosanna or perhaps Jed could comment further upon that, because I know Jed has significant experience with coordinating those things.
And that may be all that
Thanks.
it was.
This is Jed. I just wanted to address the question, which is about the conversation in the past, which really was the coordination of the meeting and sort of figuring out whether or not it was worthwhile for us to alter the board meeting schedule to hold the meeting at the CAPA conference, which we had done in the past. That was really the significance of the conversation in prior meetings, was whether or not to reschedule our meeting to hold it at the conference. And the result of that discussion was basically that it causes scheduling problems with the 100-day limit between meetings. And so we decided to keep the meeting. The board voted to keep the meeting in November rather than try and have a meeting in October. That was what all of that conversation was about at a prior meeting, if my recollection is correct.
Sounds so. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. Thank you, Jed. Any other comments, members? Very well, thank you. Michael, do we need to open this item before we close it for public comment as well?
Yes, Mr. President, we should take comment after each item.
Thank you so much. Ms. Fisher, if you would open the conduit for public comment.
Certainly. We've opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone has any questions or comments on board activity reports, my apologize, the executive officer's report, you can look for the question mark icon and type the word comment in the text box and click send. The other option is you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Are there any comments on the executive officer's report? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very well, that concludes item number 6. Item number 7 are board activity reports, and we will start with item A, which is licensing. Staff member Caldwell, if you would, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So the first report, I believe that's up, is the licensing population by type. And this just breaks down the different types of licenses that we currently have. A total of 15,881 licensees are current, 2 inactive or 32. 2 individuals are on temporary family support, which brings us to a total of 15,915 licensees. Any questions on that report? The next report that is up is the summary of licensing activity. This just breaks down how many applications we received for an initial license, which would be 431. We issued 358 licenses out of that volume of initial applications. And then we also received during this time period of April 1st through June 30th, 2022, 1,685 applications to renew. We'll rotate the next report report is the pending application workload. Moderator, I don't know if it can be rotated, but
Just 1 second.
sure.
There you go.
Perfect. So this breaks down the workload for staff members who are overseeing the initial applications. So myself and Margarita, Maggie are the two licensing analysts for the board currently, and this gives you an idea of how long it's taking to process an application. The first pie chart is the desk age, and it really just reflects how long the application's been with the board and has been reviewed. So the desk age is once it's assigned to an individual. And the second page of this report is how long the application's been in the system. There is a difference in the time because we don't download online applications on a daily basis. We do review everybody in the date order that they're received, but they might hang out in the system for a few days before they're actually assigned to an analyst specifically for the online applications. So the desk age is just how long the application's been in reviewed, assigned, and reviewed. Majority of them are falling within that green section of the pie, which is 0 to 30 days. We do review everybody within 30 days. They do get an update. They're advised of any application deficiencies. And if their application is complete within that 30-day window of applying for licensure, their license is granted and issued. So anything that falls outside of that green is really just the fact that there's items that are deficient. We have people that apply a little bit early, so they hang out in the drawer. Some people have not been successful passing the PANCE on their first attempt. Some people have a large volume of verifications that take a little bit of time for us to receive. And some people have issues with getting the results from the Department of Justice and FBI, meaning that when we submit a fingerprint card, the FBI and DOJ take about 2 to 4 weeks to process that first fingerprint card. If it does get rejected, it's typically due to the impressions, the quality of the impressions not being sufficient for them to use. So we submit a second card for processing. That adds another 2 to 4 weeks onto the overall time frame. And if that second impression gets rejected, then the Department of Justice and FBI automatically do what's called a name check, and that adds another 30 days. So some of those applications are strictly sitting there awaiting the results of their background check, which is out of the board's control. But the page 2 of this report shows you the timeline that for the how long the application's been in the system. If we move forward one. Anybody have any questions about the pending application workload? Okay, and then the final report is the summary of licensing activity. And I think we might have a duplicate report. That's a duplicate report. My apologies.
Ms. Caldwell, I do have a question. The trend line for processing, is that holding steady? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What is your opinion on that?
Meaning the time that it takes for us to initially review the application once it's submitted?
Yes, I just getting I just want an idea of the performance. Are we shortening, or is it being pretty much static in terms of?
So we were running about 3 weeks from the time you submitted the application to the time that you received an update from the board. So 3 weeks from the time of applying, you'll get a notification that we call deficiency letter that just lists any deficiencies, or you would get a letter that says, congratulations, your license has been issued. July was a little bit, pushed us out just a little bit past that 3 week margin, but we're still under the 30-day window that we like to maintain. And that was just due to vacation schedules. And so now that we're kind of through our vacation schedules in the office for staff, then we'll get back on track. And we've been tightening that from that 30 days, maybe a 21-day window. And It really depends. Sometimes it just depends upon the volume of schools that are graduating and how many applications that we're receiving. That can cause an increase in the overall time, but it's still within that 30 days, which is, we have posted all over our website to allow the board 30 days before receiving an update. So for the most part, we are meeting that deadline, I guess.
Okay, so you're satisfied with the timelines of processing, and so it doesn't sound like there's anything you need us to do or to consider for any improvement. You're satisfied with performance at this point. Is that fair to say?
Currently, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Dr. Hawkins, I have a question.
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
And thanks for that report. I'd like to make a statement on a personal privilege. My wife, Darla Gale Hawkins, who's a PA, retired after 40 years working for Kaiser as a pediatric PA. And this just happened a couple months ago. And although it may come at a different time, we have almost 16,000 licensed physician assistants in California, and I assume they're working here. What does it look like in terms of workforce? And it may need to be done at a different time. I'm just curious. I thought about it as I thought my wife retiring, about with the new schools, however, now there's a 3-year requirement to get a PA degree. How does that look for the state of California? And it may be a bigger question that could be answered at this time.
I'm not sure I understand your question. Is the ratio of PAs that we have in California sufficient to meet the needs of the consumers?
I guess I'm just asking what the numbers are looking like. Look at the numbers that are in practice versus numbers that are retiring. How is that numbers balancing out? It's as simple as that. What does it look like for workforce? PAs only.
And I'm probably not the best person to answer that question because I don't know what the need currently is out in the field. Or providers, maybe a practicing PA might have a better, be able to better assist.
You know, Dr. Hawkins, I think that when we get to item 14, that topic with Dr. Alexander and Jed Grant addressing the workforce advisory committee, that's their bailiwick. I think that might shed some light on your question.
I thought that might, but thanks a lot.
You bet. Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay. Michael, I assume that we can wait until we close the entire board activity reports before taking public comment, and we can proceed to B. Is that a safe assumption?
Yes, Mr. President, we can.
Thank you so much. Very good. Staff member Melendez, item 7B. If you would, please, the complaint statistics and so forth.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. I will be providing you a section of the enforcement activity report in regards to the complaint for the fourth quarter. We will be focusing on the fourth quarter of April 1st, of the months of April 1st to June 30th, 2022. As you can see, we have also provided stats from previous quarters. This report will also show how we are trending this fiscal year to last fiscal year. For the complaint volume, we have received 89 cases. We have 6 cases that are convictions, arrests that were received. We have a total of 95 cases received. Intake. We had 110 cases assigned to the desk analyst. 0 complaints are pending at the intake. Complaints and investigations. 24 cases, 24 complaints were referred to for investigations. 116 complaints and investigations were closed. 269 complaints are pending at the desk analyst, with the desk analyst, excuse me. 76 investigations are pending at the field. Investigation aging. The average age of pending investigations are 239 days. Investigations over 8 months old, there are 28 cases currently. And then we'll move on. I would like to move on to the following chart. The following chart is on the complaints received by type and source. This concludes my portion of the report. Thank you.
Thank
Please
you,
let me know
sir.
if you have any questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. My comment is I'm impressed with the investigation aging report of this year as compared to last year's numbers. That's good to see that downward trend. Any other comments or questions from board members, please? All right, very good. Let us proceed then to staff member Hayden for 7C discipline report.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be presenting the discipline stats for the fourth quarter and overall numbers for the fiscal year 2021-2022. The fiscal year is from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. For the interim suspension orders for the fourth quarter, there were none issued, but for the fiscal year, there was a total of 1. For the Penal Code Sections 23 suspension order, there was 1 issued this fourth quarter and a total of 4 for the fiscal year. For the Office of the Attorney General transmittal, there were 11 cases initiated this quarter with an overall for the fiscal year of 39 cases. Pending cases for this fourth quarter was 43, and the overall fiscal year is a total of 43. Average age of the pending cases for this fourth quarter is 300, and the overall number is 300. For the formal actions filed, withdrawn, and dismissed, there were 5 accusations filed this quarter with an overall of 15 this fiscal year. Accusations withdrawn and dismissed, there were none this quarter, but overall there were 2 this fiscal year. The next slide is administrative outcomes and final orders. There was no license application denied, but overall there was 1 the fiscal year. There were no licensees placed on probation this quarter, but the fiscal year there were a total of 4. There were no public reprovals issued this quarter, but overall the fiscal year there was 1. There were 2 licenses surrendered this quarter with a total of 7 for the fiscal year. For the petition for reinstatement granted, there were 2 granted this quarter with a total of 3 this fiscal year. And for the petition for reinstatement denied, there was 1 this quarter with a total of 2 for the fiscal year. For the petitions for termination of probations that were granted, there was 1 this quarter with a total of 4 this fiscal year. And for a petition for modification of probation granted, there were none this quarter, but a total of 1 for the fiscal year. So now for the citation and fine, there was 1 citation issued this quarter, a total of 6 for the fiscal year. For resolved and closed, there were 2 this quarter with a total of 6 for the fiscal year. And for pending citations, there's 2 this quarter and a total of 7 for the fiscal year. For the fines issued, there's $5,000 and year to date is $5,500. And for the fines received, there was $750 received, and that was the total for the fiscal year. That concludes my report. Does anybody have any questions?
The question that immediately comes to mind is the fines issued versus received. I take it we're simply waiting on payment or collection, or what can you illuminate on that delta there?
Yes, so they are given a certain amount of days from the date that the citation is issued. So at this time, we're currently, it's still pending. So right now we've received 750, and that went back to other fiscal years or another fiscal year where the fine was issued, and they're just paying it this fiscal year. So.
Understood. Thank you.
Dr. Hawkins, what's the most common reason for a license application to be denied? If you know. I'm sorry, did you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to see.
Okay, sorry.
I'm not sure that I can
just
say
curious.
specific. I mean, there's unprofessional conduct, you know, while they're in school, or there's different things. I can't really say specifically. Sorry, I don't know if anybody else maybe can
That's
say
fine.
that.
I was just curious. It's not that often, so I was just curious.
Yeah.
That might be a better question that might be better answered by Ms. Caldwell.
So the applications do get denied for disciplinary history with either that's reported maybe from another licensing board. So once they apply and we have all of the requirements in and we do a complete review of every piece of the application, there are some times that we base our decision for denial if they're already in a disciplinary situation from another board. Then we can mirror that and just deny them licensure, and we refund them the initial licensing fee. Or if there's a conviction, criminal conviction that appears because of on the rap sheet because of the background check, and then we get the police report and the arrest or the arresting report and court documents, and we consider it a denial at that point based on the information that we receive. So those would be the reasons that we're denying licensure in California. It's based on something that's been reported by another state because we received a license verification or the National Practitioner Data Bank report and or criminal convictions.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments? All right, very well. Let us move on to item 7D, Staff Member Gerard.
Hello, everyone. It was nice meeting everyone last quarter in person. There's an error on my report here. I originally counted a termination of probation as a completed, and although I fixed that, I did not update my totals. That's why you see a discrepancy. That was in April. Someone was granted early termination. We're holding steady at 37 active probationers, and we have 45 probationers. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. And excuse me. So that's. Are there any questions on this report?
I don't have any. Any other members have any questions on this report?
Yeah, this is Charles Alexander. So what would those numbers look like? I mean, the totals are, you said the totals are different than the numbers in the sale.
Yes, sir.
So you have 2 for completed probation, but 1 in June. What would the other one be?
Okay, so that's what's not correct. That should, on the totals column, completed probation should be 1, and probation terminated should be 1. And instead, I had counted that April termination up in completed. And then I moved it correctly, but I did not change the totals. So it would be 1 completed, 1 terminated. I apologize for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
You would think with such low numbers, I would get them right.
Yeah, well, I wasn't a math major either. That's why I asked the questions. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I apologize for that one. I visited mostly East Bay and then inland in the North State in this quarter here.
Could you expand on that a little bit? What visited? I know you're actually in the field, so tell us how that is going a little bit.
I think it's going well. It was a little exciting, and we're just going to have a cliffhanger here and see what's going to be going on. But yeah, I've made some surprise visits, and I hope to do that again this quarter. I took a vacation and then I got COVID. That slowed me a little bit, but.
Oh, I hope you're well on the mend.
I am, sir. Thank you.
Good. How are you being received when you make these surprise visits to probationers?
I think some people are very surprised, and I've had a couple folks not actually be at work that day, so I'm trying to. We got a new form that we made that has folks list their actual practice location and trying to get a schedule down. So when I go to an area, I try to at least book one person and surprise another. That way, that if both are gone, it's not a waste of our money to visit. Am I rambling now? Did I answer the question, sir?
No, you did. You did. I'm trying to just get a picture of what's happening out there in the field. Are the probationers generally cooperative and even though they're surprise cooperative in informing you of information you're looking for?
Yes, sir. And now when I do intakes, when I've been meeting people, I say, if I should come here unannounced, what would that look like? And they say they're going to tell their staff. Because really, people are insulated, so I have to get through the staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. I look forward to hearing further about how this field exercise happens. I think it's pretty interesting. Any other comments or questions on 7D?
President Armenta, this is Jed. Could I just ask a quick question?
Of course, sir, please.
I just wanted to ask, I think if I recall correctly in the last meeting, there was some conversation about that sometimes when doing site visits on probationers that there was some pushback from the physician side, from the employers. Has that changed at all, improved? Is it still the same? Have you, we had talked about, if I recall correctly, talking to the probationers about making sure their employers understand the requirement for unannounced visits. So I'm just wondering if there's been any change in that aspect since the last meeting.
Well, sir, I dare say you may be misremembering, because the issue I mostly had was when the PA needed to have more actually on-site supervision. That's when we got the most shove back from the people that supervise them. They when people are coming on probation and they have to have 100% on-site supervision, and before the effective date, they were able to be practicing as a sole practitioner there. That was mostly where the pushback was coming. We had a couple folks. So I haven't really had much pushback from visiting on-site from the actual physicians.
All right, great. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments on this item? Very well. I guess that leads us to 7E, if I'm not mistaken, and that is still yours, Mr. Ard.
Yes, sir. So this is quite an extensive chart for just the bottom numbers of 3 down there that we're holding at. We have 3 participants in the board's diversion program.
Okay, and that you don't see any problems there at all. That appears to be operating as intended, I take it.
Yes, sir. As far as my understanding, we didn't have a meeting in July. With all the board, all the boards have a meeting like once a month. We skipped July. I think it was due to vacations.
Okay.
Yeah, no concerns. Knock on wood.
Very good. So I take it that concludes your report, Ms. Gerard.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any comments on item 7E? Very well. So that would be all the parts of item 7. So Ms. Fisher, if we could open up the public conduit for comments on item 7, board activity reports.
Certainly, and we've opened up WebEx's Q&A feature to accommodate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the board activity reports, you may look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen and click to type comment and click send. The other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And I see no requests for public comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A?
Please.
Thank you.
Very well, that concludes item number 7. Now, item number 8, DCA report. I understand from Executive Officer Khan that there is some difficulty in logging in from the DCA staff member, Tanya Corcoran. Ms. Khan, any further update on that front?
Oh, the DCA staff that's assigned, they're trying to get someone else. I wasn't sure if Ms. Corcoran was going to do the DCA update for us, or are we still waiting for staff?
And Ms. Corcoran, you do look like you're unmuted. Although if the connection has been an issue, that may not be correct.
All right, well, let's do this. Is our budget analyst ready to go to number 9? Is that person on the phone or on the meeting and ready to go?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So, Michael, is it okay if I just defer item number 8 to a further point in the agenda and we proceed to item 9 without any type of closure on that item?
Yes, Mr. President, we can, you have the authority to move items and proceed in that manner, certainly.
Okay, yeah, but we don't need to close it or do anything formal other than to state that it's just being deferred to another point in the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we will defer item 8 until we resolve that connection issue and move to item number 9, a budget update. Please, Ms. Balkas, if you'd proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Armanta, for allowing me to present today. My name is Suzanne Balkas, and I'm a budget analyst with DCA Budget Office. I'm here to present the board fund condition statement that we currently have FM11 projections included into. So on the agenda item 9 on page 61, which is the memo, we are going to, this will give you a general overview of the board's budget, as well as the percentage of the budget used and counted toward expenditure. So the board have a budget of $3,013,000, and the board used 36.72% of its expenditure and personal services, which includes salaries and benefits, as well as 38.81% for OE&E, which includes contract purchases and travel. And finally, we have 23.62% for enforcement, which is for Office of Administrative Hearing, OAH, and Attorney General, AG. So the board have 0.85% in reversion. And on the next page, please. Thank you. So on the following page, we have the fund condition, which we have an actual 2021 beginning balance of about $4.9 million, with prior year adjustment of $70,000. which gives us an adjustment beginning balance of about 4.8 million. We have an overall revenue of 2.4 million and total expenditure of 2.4, which gives us a fund balance of 4.8 million, which is about 19 months in reserve. So for current year, which is 21-22, we have our beginning balance of 4.8 million. We have projected total revenue of about 2.6 million coming in, and we are tracking an overall projected FM11 expenditure of about 3 million. With that expenditure and revenue, we currently have a fund balance of about 4.4 million, which gives us about 16.2 months in reserve. Budget year is based on governor's budget, and budget year +1 is based on realized. And we have no immediate concern for this fund. And the next one we have is our projected expenditure. In a projected expenditure document, you can see we are projecting about $1.1 million in personal services and about $1.9 million in O&E expenses. And we're showing a total of $3 million, which create a saving of about $26,000 or about 0.85% in saving. And we have no concern for the fund, and based on these projections, we look to be good. I'm available if you have any questions.
Yes, I have a question. The +1 for 23-24, you said that is based on, and I didn't hear you clearly, based on what? Just on a budget analyst projection?
It's based on realized, so this is based on the from the governor budget.
I see. So I noticed the months in reserve trend line moving downward to 23-24 to 10 months. Should that cause us any concern, or is that in the acceptable window?
We're still in the acceptable window.
Okay. And that window is what, in your opinion, Ms. Balkas?
So usually we have between 12 and 24 months, and this is like the healthy, but if we're a little bit below 12 months, we still should be in good condition.
Okay.
And even if we are above 3 months, we're still good.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions? Actually, I do have another question myself. In light of what appears to be an inflationary environment moving forward, should we be doing anything to address that months in reserve, or is that something that is not popping up in your professional opinion yet that merits our attention?
So I'm working with Razana, and I'm going to be working with her, especially with the new budget year, to try to see what contracts that we still need to move with. So I'm working with Razana on that currently.
Okay, very good. All right, any other questions from board members on this item? All right, hearing none, Ms. Fisher, if you would open the public conduit, please.
Certainly, and we've opened up WebEx's Q&A feature to accommodate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the budget update, you can look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment in the text box and click send. The other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of your screen. Are there any questions or comments on the budget update? And I see no requests for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, let us move then, since we've closed item number 9, let us move to item number 10, which is the update on the medical consultant review program. Mr. Melendez, if you would, please.
Yes, hello. So I would like to start off by providing you with my experience working with a medical consultant program. I had the opportunity to work for the Medical Board of California for about 20 years. I spent 7 years working in an enforcement unit as a complaint analyst, and 2 of those years I worked as the medical consultant analyst with one other colleague. As a medical consultant analyst, I was responsible for the recruitment and ongoing maintenance of the pool of medical consultants, roughly about 400, employed to perform initial review of consumer complaints and prepare reports related to whether the physician's care was within the standard care in the medical community. I coordinated with the MBC staff on the review of the complaints filed against physicians, physician assistants, and midwives as it relates to their care and treatment. I independently identified and contacted medical consultants to obtain a medical reviews to determine whether further investigation is indicated. At this time, I would like to provide you with some information about our medical consultant program. But first, I would like to inform you that this program is not something new. Our board adopted the same model that is used at the Medical Board of California. We currently have a medical consultant application that is used for both physician assistants and physicians to apply for the PA program. The application should be in your board material. Okay, I would like to talk about the review of the applications. When reviewing the MC candidate's application, I confirm that the application is complete with all the required information, signed and date, and that the licensee meets the minimum requirements to be a medical consultant, which are a current and unrestricted license with the board, with the PA board or the medical board. A license in good standing, meaning the license record is clear of complaints filed within the last 3 years. The candidate has not been retired for more than 5 years. This is confirmed by a question in the application. The candidate has practiced a minimum of 3 years. And then I have the following desirable qualifications that would like to be included, but are not mandatory. Prior peer review experience. And if it's a physician candidate, I checked for the board certification from the American Board of Medical Specialties or a specialty board approved by the Medical Board of California prior to January 1st of 2019. Contracts for approved candidates. Once application is approved, I request a contract. The entire process can take roughly 2 to 3 weeks to bring a new medical consultant on board. This majority of the majority of this time is waiting the issuance of the contract by the Department of Consumer Affairs. Medical consultant recruitment. I'm working with DCA's Information Technology Unit on the creation of an MC recruitment page. This page will provide candidates with the requirements and the application to apply to the program. At this time, we don't have a go live date for the website, but I'm hoping to have. But in the meantime, we have I'm hoping to have that page completed by that time. Sorry. In the meantime, we have a current pool of consultants that I have curated from contacts at the Medical Board of California. These consultants are reviewing our current cases, and presently I have four new physician assistants in the application process. Medical consultant training. To make sure our consultants are provided complete and informative reports, we will have the first few cases reviewed by management, one of our senior consultants. I would like to add that prior to sending cases out, I provide MCs with a sample case review so that they understand what is expected. How are complaints assigned to medical consultants? Complaints are reviewed by the complaint analyst to determine what specialty the case falls under. For example, if the PA is supervised by a family med physician, the case will be reviewed by a family med consultant. I contact an NMC or maybe several at one time if it's a specialty area for which we have few consultants, or if I have several cases to be assigned, to ask if they are available to review the case. In my request, I provide the MC with a summary of the case and the subject's name so that the MC can determine if there is a conflict of interest. If the PA accepts the case for review, the case material is then sent via a secure box account with a report form and a billing form. Reviewing MC reports and quality assurance. Cases are due to the board in 2 weeks. I review the report to ensure that the medical consultant addressed the concerns cited in the complaint and that the care and treatment provided by the licensee. I also make sure that the contents of the MC report are limited to the complaint and care and treatment, and the personal opinion is not cited. If necessary, I will contact the MC to discuss concerns or obtain clarification of a report. If an MC repeatedly fails to adhere to our review procedures, then they are eliminated from the pool of active consultants. However, prior to taking the step, I or my manager will work with a consultant to resolve the issue at hand. That's all I have for now. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Melendez. I do have a question, perhaps it was directed to our practicing PAs and MDs, as a matter of fact. I know that doctors often participate, and the reason, let me give this context. The reason I'm making this comment is I saw peer review there. And what jumps out as me as a lawyer when I see peer review is the articles published that are of peer review quality. And I know MDs do that a lot, but I don't know how often PAs do that. Could our practicing PAs comment on how frequent that is for PAs to participate in peer-reviewed journal publications?
This is Jed. If I could answer that, and then maybe my colleagues will want to jump in. But for PAs that are engaging in any sort of research, so particularly like folks that work in education, like myself, then the peer review process is depends on where you're having the article published. For example, in the articles I published, they're sent out to peer reviews in the same specialty where I practice that had to do with it, or if they're education-related articles, they might be sent to other PA educators. So the publishing process is basically based on whatever the journal or textbook or whatever that's being published in. So the short answer to your question is yes, when PAs are publishing, they do engage in a rigorous peer review process. In terms of case review, that would be based on the published literature, which has then gone through the prior peer review process, in terms of what the standard of care is, as well as textbooks. And PAs participate in that, for example, in expert case review for medical malpractice, or in performance improvement at varied places where they may work. So PAs in practice are generally engaged in that if they have a desire to publish. However, many practicing PAs choose the PA profession because they want to see patients. They typically will use the same references, texts, articles for obtaining their information related to the current standard of care that physicians would use.
Okay, that helps me out. So my question then is, because when I'm litigating a case, one of the things I'm going to look at in terms of qualifications in weighing credibility of experts and their expertise is, have they, I mean, it's not a talismanic approach, but it's certainly a factor to consider, is whether there are participation in research and peer review publications and so forth. And I'm wondering if this application should be expanded maybe at item 3 to have them list as well any participation in those type of peer review research and journals and publications and so forth. So I'd like to hear other people's comments on that.
President Armenta, this is Dion. I would agree with what Jed said and underscore what you just said as well. I do expert review of cases, and I work with legal teams to evaluate cases on scope of practice issues. And typically one of the questions that I'm often asked is, have you participated in peer-reviewed literature? The answer to that is yes, and oftentimes I would need to send my CV with the list of publications. So I do think that is a value and something that I think should be a part of the process. My concern, President Armenta, centers around 3 years of experience. Typically, I think that's a bit of a low bar. I would prefer that if you're going to be a medical consultant, that you would have a minimum of 5 years. I know when I have done case reviews, the years of experience does matter, longevity in the position. And in that particular area of specialty. So I do think that there is opportunity to perhaps look at that a little bit more in detail. And then the other piece is, I know that the board is not making decisions on who is hired as a medical consultant, but I was wondering if there's an opportunity to review CVs of your top tier candidates that you're considering to bring in, because I think it's important for the board to have a general idea of the qualifications and the experiences that these folks are bringing to the table.
Yes, I think those are important points. So I guess that begs the question, Mr. Melendez, how would we approach perhaps expanding the practice minimum and also inclusion in item 3 of that application, any peer review publication experience? So what are your thoughts on how to incorporate that? Should it be incorporated, the methodologies, and including review of the CVs? How would that work?
Well, in my past experience with working with the medical board, I've never had to deal with changing the requirements on that part. That was done by my supervisor and management team. I don't see why not. We can set our own standards. I just have to verify that that I can change those with our legal department and the standards, and we can make that happen to add more years of experience and on that part, and about the having the peer review and what was the other question? Publishing.
Yeah. Whenever I'm looking at an expert or cross-examining that expert or reviewing his qualifications, one of the things that is just on my checklist is their participation in publications and research that are of such quality that they merit publication in a peer review journal of some sort. It's an indication of the expertise. And when we're going to hire somebody to be a consultant, I think that's helpful to know.
Well, we can add these requirements, but I also want to add that that the consultants that are reviewing these cases at the preliminary level, at the MC level review, are not consultants that will testify, because this is just to determine where the case goes to the field or not. And if it goes to the field, then we have another program, the expert program, and the experts in that program are going to do a more in-depth review of the case, and they will be the ones that will be asked to testify in court.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's an important distinction. I think we all should understand that. But I guess, and I'd like to hear a comment on this. I guess what we should probably do, Mr. Melendez, is ask you to explore, as you stated, with the legal department, whatever else you need to do, our ability to perhaps incorporate these comments that you've heard with respect to qualifications, and then report back to us for the next meeting. Does that sound like something you can do? And I'll ask Michael, does that seem an appropriate request?
It certainly does, Mr. President. I would like to make a distinction here, though, in terms of setting the standards. That is certainly, and this conversation is certainly appropriate, and the board can certainly be involved in setting those standards. And actually selecting consultants, reviewing CVs, reviewing the information coming in from applications. That's really a process that should be handled by your board staff in terms of the day-to-day operations and personnel and hiring and selecting consultants.
Very good. That's an important note to keep. So, okay, any further comments on this topic? It's been pretty interesting, I think. Any comments from other members?
Dr. Hawkins, I don't have a question, but just want to thank Mr. Melendez for his very long service to the medical board in this critical area of enforcement. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
This is Jed Grant. I just wanted to make a comment in regards to the initial review versus the expert that Mr. Melendez mentioned. So I think in terms of our experts, we're not considering using PAs there because we've had prior conversations about this where it's been brought up that that's problematic when it moves further down the line. This initial review is really for a PA to look at the case and feel like whether or not there's merit to proceeding with investigation based on what has happened, at least if I understand the process correctly. So if Ms. Melendez, if you could answer that question to clarify, and then I'll have one follow-on question.
Can you repeat the question once more?
Yes, what precisely is the role of the medical consultant review? What's the purpose? What do they do?
It's just to determine whether, like you mentioned, if the case has merit, and if it needs to move forward to if it needs to be moved forward to the field for further investigation. Because at the field level, they might bring the licensee in for an interview or a site visit, and that doesn't happen at this level. I usually would request a response and records, and I would review the response and records, and if it's something that a medical consultant will review, then they will review the case for me and provide me with the report and a recommendation. And they either goes to the field or it gets closed.
Great. So that's thank you for clarifying. So I think when we're looking at medical consultant reviewers, they're absolutely not the same thing as an expert reviewer who might be required to provide expert testimony in further disciplinary proceedings. Is that correct? So what I'm trying to establish here is that the medical consultant doesn't provide expert opinion in any kind of proceeding down the road. It's just an initial case review. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I wanted to add that I did look back. I did contact my coworkers that I used to work with at the medical board in the field and try to figure out what happened, because I think at one time we did have PAs reviewing cases, and I don't know if they reviewed them. They had reviewed them at the expert level at one time, and it did become problematic, and I believe that's why they stopped it. But in the 2 years that I worked there as a consultant, I never had a PAMC before. And I started asking once we got on. I was on board here with the PA board about bringing them in, because I know that other agencies such as nursing boards have RNs that review their cases as well. And we had the green light for the initial case reviews, you know, for at the MC level. Those were good to go, that a PA can do that. And that's where we're at here now today.
Right. So to give some contextual background, the reason that this came up over the last 8 years plus is because nowhere in the process was there any review by a PA, and because physician testimony at disciplinary proceedings was given a heavier weight than a PA, there was a decision somewhere along the line made not to use PAs at all. And my concern with that is that our licensees practice in an environment that is different to some extent than the environment for physicians. And so a PA having another medical consultant PA having the opportunity to review the case is important. And we saw this illustrated in several cases that came to the board where the board actually voted to dismiss the case. So there were cases being moved through the process and brought that we felt had no merit. And so this is really where this came from, and why the board felt for several years that it's important to have PA medical consultants. My final comment is that I don't know that using medical consultants requiring that they have some publishing background is a wise decision, because one of the things that we get from PA applicants when they go to PA school, other than like Dr. Kidd and me, people have interest in education and research and that sort of thing. We have an interest in it, but one of the reasons that a lot of people choose PA school is because they just want to see patients. They don't want to publish. They don't want to do those kind of things. And that, I would argue, is precisely the kind of person that we want doing our medical consultant review, because they are out there focused on seeing patients and meeting the standard of care rather than focused on research, which is a little bit different environment. So I think, or working in academia, which many of them do not have an interest in. So these are folks who, go to the profession because they want to be in a rural area taking care of people, not at an academic, medical research tertiary care center. So I think in terms of the medical consultant, it might be wise to not require any research or publishing, but I do agree with Dr. Kidd that we probably ought to require 5 years of experience, and you might even add a subcomponent of that saying at least 2 years of experience in the related specialty, because PAs are generalists and we move specialties. The average PA over the course of a 20-year career works in 3 different specialties. So it's not just the 5 years of experience overall. We might require some experience in the specialty that the case is being reviewed. So those are some suggestions that I would make in terms of the medical consultant program.
Thank you, Jed. You bring up something important and I didn't mean to overstate the case that it's a requirement, rather that it just be interesting to know. But let me ask you this then, in light of your comments. Do you think that if we even put, list your publications, that may chill otherwise perfectly good candidates for this initial intake process? And let me parenthetically note that this intake process is just as much to prevent the dismissal as it is to help staff that are not PAs understand the parameters of a particular case and whether it merits moving forward. So noting that parenthetically, do you think it might chill some applications if we put in the application, hey, list your publications? What do you think?
I don't know that it would have a chilling effect, but I think that it's a reasonable question to ask if there is any. You're probably going to see that in their CV as well if you're asking for their CV. I just was concerned about having it be a requirement because that would really cut down our pool of medical consultants because the vast majority of PAs do not participate in research.
Yeah, sure. That's the same for MDs as well. Okay. All right. Maybe just asking for inclusion of the CV in the application process would cover that, because I think anybody publishing their CV would certainly put their peer review publications in there. I mean, I think that's pretty customary. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. And so, Jed, could you repeat that subspecialty part again, so that it's clear? You mentioned Vasco mentioning the 5 years, which you thought was a good idea. And what was the subspecialty part you were suggesting?
So because PAs have lateral mobility and practice specialty, that we might require 2 years of experience in the case-related specialty. So for example, if a PA has practiced in primary care, general surgery, and emergency medicine, we would want them to have some experience in each of those. Maybe now they're practicing in primary care, but they have 2 years of experience in general surgery. Then they could be a medical consultant for a general surgery case. But you wouldn't want a PA reviewing a case that had no experience in general surgery. So just some, not just overall of 5 years experience, but some experience in the medical specialty. And I'm interested to hear what my colleagues on the board think about that. And also what Mr. Melendez thinks about that, if that's an onerous requirement or reasonable or not.
I have a comment about that.
Please.
Yes. So when I have a case that I need to send to a consultant for review, and from our list of consultants, you know, we have to match that case up with a consultant that's gonna have that specialty. And so sometimes it could be internal med or general med, and because doctors can practice outside of their specialty, there's not a requirement that says that they can't. And so we would ask them. That's why we ask them the questions when we send the review, and most of them will tell me, no, I don't have any experience with that, or yes, I do. And we try to find that information out also in their CV or their experience in their application. So we as a complaint analyst or as an MC analyst that I was over there, you know, I would review the experience that physician has so to match up the MC with that case, with the appropriate case. And so that's something that I had to do for every case, and you know, that was part of the process as a consultant there, as a MC analyst consultant.
Oh, okay. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that you pretty much do that already internally, that it wouldn't need to be a written requirement or anything. Is that correct?
Yes, that's yeah. That's what we do. That's the job of the MC analyst. I mean, but at this level, you know, I do everything here on the complaint side, and including that part. But over there, my focus was just that alone, and I was sending out, you know, anywhere from 34 cases. I was averaging sometimes 50 cases a week that I would send out to medical consultants, and you know, it's a you know, we have a long list of them. I keep notes on if I know what the specialty is. I also keep notes on any other like subspecialties that they might have or experience, and we try to match them up as much as we can. And if I'm not sure what their experience is, I might ask them, or we'll look at the CV.
Okay, great. And how often is that updated? Because PAs, I would suspect are working in different specialties more often than physicians are.
Well, when I was at the medical board.
Oh, did we lose Mr. Melendez?
We would renew their contract every 2 years, and but we would always check we would always check on their license information every time we assign a case. Because prior to assigning a case, we would have to check their license to make sure that that is current, and for any updated information, we would check to see if they have any complaints. We wouldn't send a case out if they received a complaint, during that time.
Right. I'm understanding that, but my comment basically is you wouldn't be able to gather that from their licensing information at the PA board. It sounds like you're meeting the intent of what my comment was about. So that's adequate. Great. I appreciate the information on that.
Well, what I can do,
the only thing I would say is that I think I understand what you're saying and your process, and I have confidence in that. I think I would withdraw my comment about the 2 years of experience in a specialty and just agree with Dr. Kidd that 5 years of overall experience is good because you're already doing the internal screening to make sure they have the adequate experience to review the case. So.
Yeah, Jed, I think I agree with you. It sounds like that Mr. Melendez's process is an ongoing, internally, by its own nature, it's ongoing updating and matching to the appropriate specialty.
I do have another. I have a question. I know there's some things that you would like for us to add in the application or consider. So how much different are we going to make it on these requirements for an MD and a PA on the requirements, because this is one application for both licensees, and I'm in the process of adding DOs on here as well, because as they supervise PAs as well.
Mr. Melendez, I think what I get, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I get a consensus emerging that the only thing we really want to add might be the 5-year minimum.
Okay.
And that we ask you to do whatever you need to do to explore how to do that, if you can do that, so forth and so on.
Okay, I can do that.
Is that right, everybody? Does everybody kind of agree with that approach?
This is Jen. I agree with the 5 years.
Okay. All right. So if you would look into that, Mr. Melendez, that would be terrific.
I can do that.
Okay. All right. Well,
I think Dr. Hawkins had a comment, President Armenta.
Oh, please, Dr. Hawkins.
Actually, my hand was up from before. I agree with the consensus. To me, you have to have a PA board involved, PA physician assistant involved in this process that speaks to the standard of care, that has experience in the area for which the person is being considered or evaluated. So I agree with what's been stated.
Very good. Excellent. Any other comments? All right, very well. That'll be our recommendation to you, Mr. Melendez.
Okay.
Can Ms. Fisher, would you please open the public conduit to see if we can get any public comment on this topic?
Certainly. And we have opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. You may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, behind the 3-dot other options, and type the word comment into the text box and click send. The other option is to raise your hand. And I do not see any requests for public comment at this time. I did want to let you know that Karen Halbo, the regulations attorney, is currently now in the meeting as well.
Okay, very good. Let's close that public conduit.
Thank you.
And let us at this time take a comfort break for 10 minutes. We've been going a little bit time. And Mr. Melendez, thank you. That was an interesting and I think important step for us to take. as Jed noted, we're going to save a lot of time and effort when we have these cases that we end up dismissed. So I think this is an important process. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You bet. So let's do a 10-minute comfort break, people. So we'll adjourn for about 10 minutes and come back, and perhaps during that time, the executive officer can, and with the assistance of our moderator, determine if our consumer affairs staff member can join us. Okay, so with that, we're adjourned for 10 minutes, people. Thank you. Well, it is 10:10. Madam Moderator, can you reopen the meeting?
Certainly, the meeting is open.
Okay, very well. Can we just make sure everybody is back in their seats, so to speak, so that we can proceed? And perhaps, Ariel, if you can do a quick roll call. Ms. Gompers?
I'm here.
Could you do a quick roll call just to make sure we have everybody back?
Of course. Charles Alexander.
Present.
Juan Armenta.
Present.
Jennifer Carlquist.
Present.
Jed Grant.
Present.
Diego Nzunza.
Present.
Randy Hawkins.
Here.
Vasco Dion Kidd.
Present.
And that concludes the roll.
Excellent. Everybody right on time, a well-oiled machine here at the PAB. Outstanding. I understand that we have the ability now to have Ms. Corcoran give her Department of Consumer Affairs Director's updates, and I invite her to do that at this time.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Okay, good morning, and thank you for allowing me an opportunity to provide the Department of Consumer Affairs update today. Specific to the Open Meeting Act legislation, the governor signed Senate Bill 189 on June 30th. So it reinstituted through July 1, 2023, the remote meeting provisions of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act that were in place during the pandemic. So I just wanted to advise you that we continue to advocate on your behalf so you may continue to conduct your board meetings in a manner that best serves the business of the board, while still taking into consideration both costs and public participation. We are asking boards to continue using WebEx as you are today here, as much as possible to allow the public to attend remotely. We are also continuing to survey the boards about public meetings to track costs for the meetings in order to kind of compare costs for in-person and WebEx meetings, since this legislative change is only in place for this fiscal year. So those surveys have been distributed to all boards and bureaus, and they're being completed within 30 days after each meeting that's being held. Specific to in-person meeting guidelines, just a reminder that if you choose to hold in-person meetings, there are some safety measures and best practices. And so, all board members and staff are expected to follow the state and local public health guidelines that apply in the area where those meetings are being held. And there is strongly encouraging of face masks to be worn, at those public meetings. In addition, if prior to any meeting in person or at a remote public location, so certainly not a WebEx, but members need to submit vaccine verification to the department's Office of Human Resources or be subject to COVID-19 testing. So transitioning, I wanted to talk about regulations. The director recently held a brown bag meeting with executive officers and bureau chiefs that was held on July 5th to roll out changes to DCA's regulation development and approval process. Those changes were discussed and reviewed by the executive officer and bureau chief cabinet, and then it was shared with all boards and bureaus, including the documentation and flow charts for those processes. So we're hoping to see regulations moving through the process more quickly. Specific to board and bureau relations, typically Carrie Holmes would have been here, but she departed and left DCA back on May 13th. And additionally, Brianna Miller, she accepted another position and she left on June 10th. So I'm here today. We are sharing that responsibility. We want to assure you that during this transition period, we will continue to serve and provide the services that we did prior to their departure. But if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to member relations or call the DCA exec office directly. I did want to share a few DCA changes in staffing. I'm pleased to announce that Nicole Lay, she was hired on June 24th as the Deputy Director of our Office of Administrative Services. She has more than 20 years of state experience and 10 years dedicated to those in DCA in Office of Human Resources functions. So we're very excited to have Nicole join us. Additionally, Olivia Trejo, she was appointed as DCA's Chief of Office of Human Resources effective August 1st. Olivia has over 22 years of human resources experience and served the last 9 years here with the department in our Office of Human Resources. And the final change is Taylor Schick. In July, he was appointed as DCA's Chief Fiscal Officer. Taylor has more than 16 years of state service experience, all with DCA, and he began his career as a budget analyst and most recently serving as the DCA budget officer. I wanted just to let you know about travel expense claims. If you have submitted those, we have been notified that there been a delay in processing and approval of travel expense claims for the current fiscal year. So that would be July 1 to present. And that had to do with setting up the new fiscal year budget in the statewide fiscal system. So we do expect those to be resolved in the coming weeks, and we appreciate your patience regarding this and any claims. So they are ready to go and they'll be processed quickly once we're able to use that system again. And then my final note, I wanted just a reminder about the board member orientation training, which is coming up. The final training will be offered for this year, October 12th. And members, you can register through the department's learning management system. And just a reminder, it's required for all newly appointed or reappointed members, but is also available as a refresher for all members and executive officers. Just reach out again to us at the executive office if you have any questions. So as always, we're here to help. And if there's anything we can do to assist, please reach out. So thank you.
Ms. Corcoran, thank you so much. I'm glad we're able to resolve the technical problems for your update. We appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let us open the public conduit for, let me ask our board members, any comments from the board members? Very well, hearing none. Ms. Fisher, if you'd open the public conduit for public comment, please.
Certainly. And we've opened up WebEx's Q&A function to allow public comment. If there are any questions or comments on the DCA report, you can look for the question mark icon at the lower right of your WebEx screen, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. Are there any questions about the DCA report? And seeing no comments, shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Very well, that concludes item number 8, which we took out of order, and we are now on item number 11, report on Medical Board of California activities by Dr. Hawkins. Please, sir, if you would.
Good morning again, and thanks for the opportunity to report some of the important activities of the Medical Board of California. As Vice President, I'm pleased to represent the board. The Medical Board last met in person in Sacramento in May of this year. The board is next scheduled to meet virtually later this month. Both panels will meet Wednesday, August 24th. Quarterly board meetings will occur Thursday, the 25th. On Friday, the 26th, the board will have a strategic planning session. The agenda will be finalized soon and can be reviewed at our website, mbc.ca.gov. The next medical board quarterly newsletter will be available at our website on August 12th. I recommend it be read by all. I want to highlight 3 articles in this report. They are first, a brief review of the May 6, 2022 board participation in Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committee oversight hearing to review some of the board's 2022 enforcement legislative proposals. The purpose of this hearing was to discuss the medical board's enforcement process, deficiencies and opportunities to reform, and evaluate the Medical Board of California's 2022 proposals for statutory updates. I mentioned this in my last presentation to this board. Second, physician extortion scam update, where scammers posing as law enforcement officers as well as DEA agents and board staff calling California physicians as part of an extortion scheme. Please note, law enforcement officers, DEA agent, and board staff never contact physicians by telephone to demand money or any other form of payment. Reporting contract information will be in that newsletter. Third, medical board drafts updated guidelines for prescription of opioid medications for pain. The guidelines were last released in 2014. The board released a draft of updated guidelines on its website and now places the decision of what to prescribe to patients solely on the physician and the needs of the patient. The guidelines highly encourage physicians to document their prescription decisions in the patient records and keep the records up to date. It also incorporates legislations such as mandatory consultation with cures before prescribing Schedule 2 to 4 for controlled substances, and the requirement to prescribe all controlled substances with certain exceptions electronically. There are other items in the newsletter which I did not mention. Lastly, in my report, I want to highlight that Christina Lawson, President of the Medical Board of California, was a recipient of the Federation of State Medical Boards Award of Merit at its 110th annual meeting in New Orleans this April. This award is given to individuals in recognition of an activity or contribution that's positively impacted and strengthened the professions of medical licensure and discipline and helped enhance public protection. She was recognized for her steadfast leadership in upholding the mission of the board while facing harassment, threat, and unwanted political pressure, especially in the COVID-19 era, with the rapid rise of misinformation and disinformation by physicians and other health professionals. This ends my report.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hawkins. We appreciate your report as always. Forgive me, I closed a page here. Here we go. Are there any comments from the board members?
Hi, this is Jed. I just wonder for the board staff, has there been any report of any extortion type stuff with PA licensees, similar to the ones Dr. Hawkins mentioned for our physician colleagues?
Hi, this is Rosanna. We did early in the year receive some maybe 3 or 4 calls regarding DCA investigators contacting licensees asking for payment or saying that they have a complaint against them. They've immediately called the board. We have put an alert on our website which links to the DCA's page where there's all the fraud alerts. That includes the EDD scam alert and any of the basically indicating that as far as EDD, they will not contact them directly. Also, the board investigators or DCA investigators will not be contacting any licensees directly.
Great, thank you.
Okay, that was an excellent move, Rosanna. Thank you. Any other comments? Very well. Having none from the board, Ms. Fisher, if you'd open the public conduit for comments on item number 11.
Certainly. If any member of the public has a comment on the report from the Medical Board of California Activities, you can look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your screen, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And I see no request for comment at this time. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Very well. That concludes item number 11. Thank you, Dr. Hawkins. And that will bring us to item number 12, review, consider, and possible action to initiate a rulemaking to add Title 16 California Code of Regulations 1399 at SEC relative to the military applicant temporary license. That it will be by board members Halbo and or Dillon. So please proceed. Or, I'm sorry, staff members Halbo or Dillon. So please proceed.
I think I'm the one coming up on this, and this is Karen Halbo, the Regulations Counsel. And Jasmine has been working hard on this. You have from the memorandum, the legislature passed a bill indicating they wanted people to be able to obtain a temporary license if it's a military applicant, and we didn't have a temporary license process in place. So the point of this rulemaking is to provide that process, to have the application with the information that's needed so that staff can go ahead and be able, if we get military applicants that have the qualifications, usually they're qualified somewhere else, and they come into California, and, you know, there's lots of movement in the military, and this would allow them to be able to, it's usually a military spouse, there's requirements, you have to prove your connection, but it allows them to begin practicing with the temporary license while they proceed with the regular licensure process. And staff's worked hard on this, and I think it's ready to go. This is just the text language that would basically allow the board to have the license application and start receiving them. I actually think if we get any, we'll report it at a board meeting because it will be unusual. But you want to have the system in place so that you can follow the law. We have to follow the law and provide a temporary license. Not having a procedure leads the people who would want to use that process in the dark. So we're trying to set it up and make it more clear. Do you have anything to add, Jasmine? You've been working on this for a while.
No, I think you covered everything, Karen. You know, this text was provided by DCA, so I believe all of the boards that are affected by AB 107 will be implementing similar text to what you see here. It's very standard, and yeah, I think that's about it. So it opens it up for board discussion.
Yeah, that was the only question I had. Is this regulation pretty much mirrors all the other regulations that arise from this bill?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions from board members, please?
I'm sorry, this is Jed. I just had a question. I don't have any problem with the text of the regulation, but I'm wondering does this trigger a lot of other processes? Because right now we don't have a temporary license. We used to have one a long time ago. So will this regulation cover that? Will we now have a temporary license, and how long will it be good for? Maybe I missed it, but I didn't see it in the text there. Like, how long is it good for, and when can it be converted to a regular license, and all of that sort of thing? Will that require additional, how does that work, I guess is my question.
Well, the license is good for a year, and at any point during that year, they can finish the regular licensing process and get a regular license. Yeah, and I don't know if that's not clear in the memo that describes what's going on, but by statute, that's how long the license is good for.
Right, that's in the bill, right? The year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
Okay, what's it? Thank you. What's the, I guess I was just looking for it in the text of the regulation, but I guess if it's in the bill, it's not needed, or, you know, if it's in the law, perhaps that's not needed in the regulation. But my other question is, when they apply for this, how long will it take for us to issue the license? Just thinking about, like, you know, most of our licenses are issued within 30 days. So do we also have 30 days to issue this temporary license, or is there, forgive my ignorance if it's in the bill, I haven't read the bill.
Well, that's sort of a staff question I would ask Jasmine, but you know, getting an application for a temporary license, they're going to look at it and go, okay, this person has a legal right to something quickly. So it might get processed. I don't know if they move it up the line. I don't know how staff handles that, but we want to have a procedure that people can ask for something they're entitled to. Do you have details for that, Jasmine, on how staff plans to handle these if we actually get any in?
so I believe our staff already prioritizes military applicant license applications, because we do have the expedited licensure process in place, where staff is able to process those applications within the 30-day timeframe. And currently, our normal license application is also, the review for that is also completed within the 30 days, 30 to 35 business days. But so when this regulation is implemented, basically, I believe our staff will be prioritizing the applications even more, just providing a concierge-like service to those applications. But currently, our staff has no issue prioritizing or expediting those licenses, but this regulation just provides a framework for the temporary licensure process, which our board does not have in regulation as of yet.
I have to give a little history. Many of the medical related boards had gotten very backed up in processing licenses, and there's been constant pressure for that. And the physician assistant board is in good shape. They have good processes. You guys handled things well. So, you know, it's nice that you're not one of the boards that, well, yeah, it takes us about 60 days, so we need to have this expedite. But by having the process in place, it's clear for someone who has a right to get a temporary license how they would go about it. Without this, they don't have any information on how to apply for the temporary license. And they'll have the pleasant surprise of, if they also file for a regular license about the same time or within a month or two afterwards, that it comes quickly.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, good questions there, Jed, to clarify this for everybody. Okay, any other comments from any other board members? Very well. Does anybody wish to make a motion to authorize staff to do what is necessary to promulgate this, submit this regulation for approval?
This is Jed. I'll make the motion.
This is Jen. I'll second.
Very well. Michael, is our motion sufficiently stated?
I believe, Mr. President, that there's some language in the memo in terms of the motion. I do think that needs to be read.
Okay, I'm missing it. Where is it? Karen, perhaps you can.
The thing is, you've got my screen, so I can't, it's very tiny. I'm going to be squinting here. Thank you. That helps tremendously. Okay, so the motion would be to approve the proposed regulatory text, adding Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations, Section the number is to be determined by staff, XX, where it would fit in best. The board is also asked to direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review, and authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process and make any non-substantive changes to the package. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day public comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at section 1399.xx to be determined on the number as noticed.
So Jed, I take it that is your motion?
Yes, that's correct. So moved.
And Jen, you second that motion?
So seconded.
All right, very well. Can we please open the public comment, Ms. Fisher, to determine any public comments before we vote?
Certainly. And we've opened up the Q&A portion of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you have a comment on the proposed rulemaking for military applicant temporary license, look for the question mark in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. And in the comment section, type comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon. And I do not see any requests for public comment. I can close the Q&A feature.
Please.
Thank you.
Very well. Motion having been made and seconded, public comment complete. Ariel, if you'll please call the vote. Or who's calling the vote? I'm sorry.
All right. Charles Alexander.
Aye.
Juan Armenta.
Aye.
Jennifer Curlquist.
Aye.
Jed Grant.
Aye.
Diego Nzunza.
Aye.
Vasco Dion Kidd.
Aye.
That completes this vote.
Excellent. Okay, vote passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Karen and Jasmine, for that topic. And we'll close number 12. We'll move on to 13. So, Jasmine, you're up again on regulations update.
All right, I will be providing an update on the pending regulatory packages. The first package, the license renewal and continuing medical education required. The revised proposed regulatory language was approved and adopted by the board at its notice. And staff will be working on initial documents to submit for an initial review this calendar year. Moving on to the next package, SB 697 implementation. The proposed regulatory language was passed by the board and approved by the Medical Board of California, which has been revised to address concerns raised by the California Academy of PAs, also known as CAPA, and DCA's Legal Affairs Division. The revised proposed regulatory language was approved and adopted by the board at its November 8th, 2021 meeting, and staff is currently working on initial documents with Regulations Council and the Budget Office to submit for an initial review. Moving on to the next package, listed as SB 697, application, exam scores, addresses, and record keeping. The proposed regulatory language passed by the board has been revised to address further concerns raised by CAPA and DCA's Legal Affairs Division. The revised proposed regulatory language was approved and adopted by the board at its November 8th, 2021 meeting. Staff submitted initial submission documents for budget and legal review, which was completed on July 29th, 2022. The initial submission documents have moved to executive and agency review, and once approved, the notice of the proposed regulatory action will be published in the California Notice Register to start the 45-day public comment period, likely to be in mid-September. Moving to the next package, retired status to include fingerprint requirement. This regulatory proposal is on hold for 2022 until the above packages are completed. Moving on to the next package, SB 1441, implement uniform standards related to substance abusing licensees and update of disciplinary guidelines. This regulatory package is also on hold for 2022 as until the above packages are completed. And finally, the AB 107 military applicant temporary licensure regulatory package, which we just discussed on agenda item 12. This proposed text was to be reviewed, discussed, and potentially adopted, and was in fact adopted as we just saw with agenda item 12. And that concludes my update.
Very good, thank you. Any board comments or questions?
President Armenta, this is Jed Grant. I just had I don't know if it's a comment or a question, so I'll just throw it out there if that's okay.
Please.
And that is, I noticed, we approved the language on a lot of these, 8 or 9 months ago now. Is there, I guess, is this a normal time frame in sort of working through the process at DCA to get, work out the various things that need to be done to move the bill through? It just seems like it's taking kind of a long time. So I was wondering if there's a reason for that.
I think that, I started with the board last March of 2021, but, and I've been trying to get through these packages as well as I could, and just prioritizing the packages as well. So, I'm working on the SB 697 implementation and the address and record keeping package, which is moving forward. But again, I am the only person working on these packages as well as the legislative portion for the board. But I believe that, the regulatory process does take quite a bit of time. There's a lot of back and forth with the Legal Affairs Division and then also the Budget Office, and then edits go back and forth between me and the Regulations Council. So there's a lot of just editing and following up, and sometimes, packages get held up also with the Office of Administrative Law. It just depends on, if they're bombarded with packages as well. Yeah, I think, some of the packages, it does seem like they've been, the text has been adopted for over 8 months or 9 months, like you said, but, we're doing our best to try to move them along. And I think that DCA has recently been assisting us with that as well.
Jed, I'll have to share with you a saying that we have in the law, and that is, anybody that enjoys the law or sausages should not watch either being made. And I can tell you, I'm not surprised at all by this length of time. The OAL, to source of frustration in my practice, OAL does take quite a bit of time to process these matters. So I'm not shocked.
Okay, thank you very much. I just kind of, and certainly was not being critical of you, Ms. Dillon or Ms. Halbo or anything else. I just was curious if this is kind of the normal time length process, or if something has caused it to be delayed, maybe because of COVID or something else. Was just kind of curious. So thank you for that report and for your hard work on all of this.
Doing regulations is a unique analyst skill, and many of my analysts get bogged down when the legislature gets frisky and there's a lot that they have to watch. So I know to be patient during seasons of the ledge stuff, because it's a common ledge-reg position to do both. And Jasmine is learning. I'm excited. I think you have a good person here. I've had other analysts, let's just say. So I think we will pick up speed simply from practice. The first few that you do take longer on almost anything than the ones you do down the road. So I think that it will come faster as we keep moving.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that, Karen. Again, not being critical, just trying to understand. So thank you both for your hard work on this.
Any other comments from board members? Very well. Can we open it up, Ms. Fisher, for any public comment?
Certainly. And we have opened up the Q&A panel in WebEx to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the pending regulatory packages, you can look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. And in the text box, write the word comment and click send. The other option you have is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon in the bottom row of your WebEx controls. Are there any public comments on the pending regulatory packages? And I see no requests for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Please.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes number 13. And while our agenda has lunch break, we are only at 10:45, so we're moving along quite well. Let's see. Let's move to item number 14, reports by board members Jed Grant and Dr. Charles Alexander on our Education Workforce Advisory Committee updates. So gentlemen, please, whoever is going to take the lead, please do so.
Thank you, Jed. Go ahead.
All right, thanks, Charles. Feel free to jump in here if I miss something or there's something you want to add. This was updated, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago. Special thanks to the board staff for reminding me that this needed to be done. Sometimes these meetings sneak up on us quicker than we think. So currently there are 287 PA programs across the United States, and in California we have 19 programs with 4 under development. So the most recent addition to that list, I think, is the UC San Diego, I think would be one that's developing that we weren't aware of before. And then another one that had been listed prior. I don't think there's been any traction. They don't have a website or anything, so I took them off the list, which left our numbers the same. In terms of the programs in California, 2 have been put on probation. At the last meeting reported that 1 came off of probation, so 2 more have been placed on probation. If members of the public or board members are curious about why these programs are on probation, that can be found at the ARCPA website, which there is a link at the bottom, which those documents will be there. And they have a year to fix whatever problem they're having, both of those programs in the LA area. Currently, with our 19 accredited programs, we graduate 883 new PAs per year, assuming that programs don't have attrition, but many programs do. So I'm, probably around the 870 ballpark, I would say, is probably close. Some of the developing programs, it's a little bit hard to find exactly how many seats that they plan on having. And so nationwide, the average number of seats in a PA program is 46. So for those programs where you see the question mark and asterisk, those programs, I just used 46 to estimate the annual capacity. And so that's how we got at that number. With our developing programs, for the ones that have listed the number of seats in their programs, or that didn't, and we use the national average as an estimate, once those programs come online, we'll have a little over 1,058 PAs graduating every year in the state of California, which is a lot of growth. Maybe 8 years or 9 years ago when I first came on the board, I think we had 7 PA programs in California. So a really tremendous amount of growth. And we know that folks who train in California or are from, folks who are from California tend to train in California, and then if they are both from and train in California, they're more likely to remain here. So that is good. We also have people that come here from out of state, but when we can have folks from our own state staying within our state, I think that is a good thing to help meet our workforce needs. And then if we go to the next page, I included a graphic that this comes from the Physician Assistant Education Association website that sort of shows geographically where the programs are located. So you can see this does not include developing programs. This is just accredited programs, if I recall correctly. Or programs that are developing and are members of the Physician Assistant Education Association. So there are 3 programs in the LA and San Diego area that aren't represented here, but this sort of just gives a mental picture of where training sites are. So the 2 in Nevada are University of Nevada, Reno, and then UNLV. And I think there's actually 2 programs in Las Vegas, but I think not represented there. Toro University, I think, has a campus there, if I recall correctly. At any rate, sort of gives you a geographic picture of where programs are and where people are training to become PAs within the state of California. So those are kind of the quick and dirty on healthcare and workforce. I know, Dr. Hawkins, you had a question earlier, and if I recall correctly, last meeting about the specialties that PAs were working in or something. Am I remembering that correctly?
I don't remember that one, but the one today was about workforce, people leaving versus people coming in, how those numbers look. And I was reminded because my wife just retired after being in PA in California for 40 years.
Oh, I see. Okay. In terms of workforce, I don't have California-specific data that we might ask our licensing staff from the board might have better data, at the rate at which people are retiring. We certainly have good licensing data for people that are coming in and getting new licenses. So that I might defer that to them if they know how many people are retiring per year. But if we look at national statistics, there are, if you look at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they keep track of data for this, which they have updated in May of 2021. And there's a 31% predicted growth in the profession in this decade, with approximately, let's see, I think it's about 12,200 new job openings nationwide per year. So if you add up the average number of seats across all of the PA programs in the United States, it's about 13,000 graduates per year. So lots of growth. There are enough programs to meet the openings, but nationwide. And since California's numbers generally trend right along 10% of the nationwide numbers, I would estimate that we're probably in pretty good shape there. But I could maybe ask Julie or somebody else who's doing licensing to comment on the number of people retiring.
I'm not sure, this is Julie, I'm not sure as far as the amount of people that are retiring per year, but in one of the items, let me look at the agenda item really quick, hold on. We have currently, when this report was ran July 21st, 2022, we have 117 individuals that have submitted an application for retirement status. So the retirement status does depend upon the board getting and approving an application from the licensee. When we initially offered this, the first year, we offered what was called a grace period, and that means that individuals did not need to pay any back fees that were due. They go ahead and submit the request for required status, and if it was reviewed, we would approve it upon receiving it and reviewing it. And then now, as it sits, there's no fee involved for the application for retired status if your license is current. If you are delinquent, you would have to pay the back renewal fee, and then we would approve your application for retired status. So it's really just driven by the needs of the licensee and whether or not they want to go ahead and set their license to retired status prior to the expiration of their license, or if they just want to go ahead and leave it as expired, also known as delinquent, and then it will cancel in that 5-year window.
Thanks, Julie. I hope that answers the question. There are some other things I came across this year, or this month, last month, I guess, while preparing this report, in terms of PAs per capita and some other data between the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and the American Academy of Physician Assistants that I can share in future reports if that's something that the board would be interested in, and sort of looking at, provider density, that sort of thing, in the state of California related to workforce. We could certainly include those. But I didn't this time because I wasn't sure that that would be, if it was just kind of a one-time question or if that's something we want included in this report. Some feedback on that would be great. And then just in terms of information, I had in my notes written that the question was sort of on distribution. I may have recorded it improperly, but since I have the information, I'll share it. About 13 or 14% of PAs are practicing in family medicine. This is from the 2022 AAPA annual survey report. And this reflects nationwide statistics, but again, we tend to fall right in line under those in California. Family medicine, about 13% of PAs practice in family medicine, orthopedic surgery, about 10%, emergency medicine, about 8%. And then the professional organization reports urgent care as a separate specialty from family medicine and emergency medicine, which are often combined in other sources, but urgent care is reported as the 4th most common specialty for PAs, which is about 7.4%. So it sort of gives you the distribution of what specialties PAs are working in. And as a reminder, the average PA changes specialties 3 times throughout a 20-year career, so may move around amongst different specialties. So in terms of the Education and Workforce Committee, we're seeing great growth in educational programs. You can see everything on this list that says provisional. These are all programs that are within their first 5 years of operation from the accrediting body, and the ones that say developing will be seating a class within the next couple of years. So lots of growth in PA programs in California. As mentioned in previous reports, the limiting factor there is for clinical rotations. So as they come on and receive provisional accreditation, they have to have their clinical rotations for their students all lined up, even though the students won't enter those clinical rotations for 12 or 15 months or whatever. So it's good to see a lot of growth there. Certainly portends well for meeting our healthcare needs within California. Of within a few years, more than 1,000 graduates every year. So unless there are questions, that will conclude my report. Or our report, I should say.
Very well, excellent. Thank you, Jed, for that fine report, Dr. Alexander. Any other questions from the board members? Very well, hearing none. Ms. Fisher, can we open for public comment?
Certainly, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to accommodate public comment. If anyone has any comment on the Education Workforce Development Committee update, you can look for the question mark icon in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen, and in the text box, type the word comment and click send. The other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon. Are there any questions or comments? I see no request for comment. Shall I close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
You're welcome.
Very well. That brings us to the item number 15. Which will obviously be either Jen Carlquist or Jasmine Dillon helping us with that, and that is a report on legislative issues. So whomever is going to take the lead, please do so.
This is Jasmine, and I'll be reporting on the report by the Legislative Committee. First off with AB 646. This bill was introduced on February 12th, 2021, and is located in the Senate Committee on Appropriations. AB 646 would require programs under the Department of Consumer Affairs that post information on its website about a revoked license due to a criminal conviction to post notification of an expungement after receiving a certified order within 90 days of the board. Within 90 days of the board receiving a certified expungement order related to that conviction for those who reapply for licensure or are relicensed. As of the last meeting, no new amendments have been made to this bill. There is an upcoming hearing on August 11th, and we will be monitoring this bill as it is likely that the bill will not pass Senate by the end of August. And the board has maintained its watch position on this bill. Moving on to SB 731. This bill was introduced on February 19th, 2021, and is located in the Senate. This bill was recently amended in Assembly on June 23rd, 2022. On May 20, 2021, a board position letter was sent to the author's office opposing the bill unless it was amended to exclude the healing arts boards within the Department of Consumer Affairs. However, the author's office believes that excluding the healing arts boards would undermine the intent of this bill within this sector of employment. This bill would expand automatic conviction record relief for a defendant convicted on or after January 1st, 2005 to non-serious, non-sexual, and non-violent felonies after an individual completes all terms of incarceration, probation, mandatory supervision, post-release, community service, and parole, and a period of 4 years has elapsed during which the defendant was not convicted of a new felony offense. This bill would, commencing July 1st, 2023, generally make this arrest record relief available to a person who has been arrested for a felony, including a felony punishable in the state prison as specified. This bill further expands discretionary expungement relief to include felonies where the defendant was sentenced to state prison rather than just realigned felonies as specified. If the defendant seeks relief under this section for a felony that resulted in a sentence to the state prison, the relief available under this section may only be granted if the felony did not result in a requirement to register as a sex offender pursuant to Chapter 5.5 of Title IX of Part 1. The exclusion of records of arrest and conviction that were granted relief from state summary criminal history information does not apply to records for which the record holder is required to register as a sex offender, has an active record in the supervised release file, or if based on information available in the department's record, it appears that the person is currently serving a sentence, or if there is an indication of pending criminal charges. On this bill, the board has maintained its opposed unless amended position. Moving on to AB 562. This bill was introduced on February 11th, 2021, and is located in the Senate Committee on Appropriations. It is set for hearing on August 11th, 2022, but will likely not progress as it is considered dead. And this bill, as you may recall, would require the Department of Consumer Affairs to establish a mental health resiliency program until January 1st, 2025 in consultation with relevant boards. And we will continue to monitor this bill after the hearing. Moving on to AB 1306. This bill was introduced on February 19th, 2021, and is located in the Senate Committee on Appropriations. This bill is no longer being advanced, according to the author's office, as the proposal actually made it into statute via AB 133. Moving on to AB 1733. This bill was introduced on January 31st, 2022, and is located in the Assembly Committee on Governmental Organization. There have been no amendments as of the last meeting. And as you may recall, this bill specifies the term meeting under the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act, which includes a meeting held entirely by teleconference as defined. And we will be closely monitoring this bill as well. Moving on to AB 1662. This bill was introduced on January 18th, 2022, and is located in the Senate Appropriations Committee. On May 31st, 2022, a board position letter was sent opposing the bill. And this position letter is attached for your reference as attachment 1. This bill would require a board to establish a process by which prospective applicants may request a pre-application determination as to whether their criminal history could be cause for denial of a completed application for licensure by the board. This bill would require a board to publish information regarding its process for requesting a pre-application determination on its internet website and authorize a board to charge a fee as specified to be deposited by the board into the appropriate fund and available only upon appropriation by the legislature. At its May 9th, 2022 meeting, the board took an opposed position. And there is a likelihood that this bill will become a much more limited pilot program that may not affect our board, according to the legislative analyst that monitors this bill. So this bill, we will continue to monitor closely as well for any amendments. Moving on to AB 657, which is a new bill. This bill was introduced on February 12th, 2021, and is located in the Senate Appropriations Committee. This bill would require the Medical Board of California, the Osteopathic Medical Board of California, the Board of Registered Nursing, and the Physician Assistant Board to expedite the licensure process of an applicant who can demonstrate that they intend to provide abortion services within their scope of practice and would specify the documentation an applicant would be required to provide to demonstrate their intent. An applicant may demonstrate their intent to provide abortion services by providing documentation, including a letter from an employer or healthcare entity indicating that the applicant has accepted employment or entered a contract to provide abortion services, the applicant's starting date, and the location where the applicant will be providing abortion services, and that the applicant will be providing abortion services within the scope of practice of their license. The board does not anticipate any fiscal impact as a result of this bill, but we will continue to monitor this bill for any amendments as it is relatively new. Moving on to AB 2626. This is a related bill to AB 657, and this bill was introduced on February 18th and is located in the Senate Committee on Appropriations. This bill prohibits the Physician Assistant Board from suspending or revoking the certification or license of a physician assistant for performing an abortion so long as they perform the abortion in accordance with the provisions of the Physician Assistant Practice Act and the Reproductive Privacy Act. This bill would also prohibit the board from denying licensure of a physician assistant because the person was disciplined in another state in which they are licensed or certified solely for performing an abortion in that state, or if the person was convicted in that state for an offense related solely to the performance of an abortion in that state. This bill contains an urgency clause that will make it effective upon enactment. And the board does not anticipate any fiscal impact as a result of this bill. And that concludes my report.
Very well. Ms. Dillon, do you see any areas that, in your opinion, we need to be looking at to change any of our positions or take action? Anything you see there?
Well, a lot of the bills, we have maintained our positions. It is up to the board whether or not they would like to further discuss AB 657 and AB 2626, as those are newly introduced at this meeting to the board.
Okay. So any board comment on any of our positions or the new bills?
This is Jed. I just had a question on the last one. I think it was AB 2626. I guess I'm a little confused because is this bill saying that we can't discipline a license for something they do outside the state? Because we really don't have any jurisdiction outside the state.
I believe that the bill is just specifying that if an applicant for licensure was convicted in another state for an offense solely related to the performance of an abortion in that state, that we possibly could not deny the licensure based on just that sole fact. That's my understanding.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. That makes more sense. Just trying to keep up with that. And you figure out exactly what that bill was saying. So thanks for clarifying. Appreciate it. I personally don't see any reason for us to change positions on anything. Thanks for the summary and going through everything, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jed. Any other comments from board members on any of our prior positions or on these new bills? My comment is that clearly these two new bills are in direct fallout of the overturning of the Roe versus Wade and are highly political in nature, but they really don't, I think, impact the business of the board. So I am not sure that we should take any position at all, support, oppose, anything. These seem highly politicized, and that is within the purview of the legislature itself, and it doesn't appear to impact our ability to carry out our mission statement. So I don't think we should take any action on either of them. And if anybody else has some comments, I would sure like to hear them. Very well. Having said that, I think we should just take a just watch approach. And I don't even think we need to do that. Do we, Michael? We can just leave these as they stand without any further action on them. Would that be accurate?
Yes, that is certainly acceptable. The board's not required to take official positions on any legislation.
Okay. Does anybody have any opposing view other than just letting these new matters lay as they are and leaving all our other positions intact? Any other opposition or comments to that approach?
This is Dion, no opposition.
Thank you, Dion.
This is Jed. I agree. I think I don't think we should say anything about the two most recent bills.
Okay, very good. I like that we're keeping in our lane. That's great. Okay, so absent any further comment to the board, Ms. Fisher, if you would open the public conduit for public comment, please.
Certainly. We've opened up the Q&A screen in WebEx for public comment. If you would like to make a comment on any of the actions from the board or regarding following legislation, you may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right corner of your WebEx screen. Click on the question mark, type the word comment, and click send. Your other option would be to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon also at the bottom of the WebEx screen. And I see no request for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A option?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, let me change screens here. Very well. So that brings us, that closes item 15 and brings us to item 16, agenda items for the next meeting. Does anybody have any recommendations or suggestions for agenda items for our next meeting?
Juan, this is Rosanna. We'll have our usual reports, but we do have the nomination and elections of board president and vice president, and also setting the meeting date and locations for 2023.
So those are items to be on our next agenda?
Correct.
Okay, if we could make sure that those are included. Does anybody have any comments on those items? Inclusion of those items? Do we need a motion to include those items, or will they just be included automatically, Rosanna?
I think they will be just included. I'm not sure, Michael?
You do not need a motion for that, no.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Very well, any other?
Dr. Hawkins, perhaps we can look closer at the workforce from the PA standpoint in the state of California. We've gotten different pieces of it. Maybe next meeting is too soon, but just to get a feeling for where we stand with PAs in California.
Rosanna,
this is Jed. If you could, I mean, we have a workforce, education committee. If there's something specific that you're looking for us to figure out, we're happy to do that. I guess maybe I just didn't understand what you were wanting us to include in the report.
Well, for example,
put that on the agenda, the Education and Workforce Committee report. But if there's something specific that you would like in there that isn't included, if you could let us know, we'll make sure we do that.
Okay, so I would say that we want the question asked to be answered to the degree they can. We know, for example, there's a quote physician shortage in the state of California because of physicians retiring. Many of those who retire actually totally retire and don't work anymore. My wife retired, but she's actually gotten calls to work for some people who she's worked for in the past part-time. So it's just a where are we relative to the folks that we represent, physician assistants, and meeting job requirements, those who are going to be coming into California. It's really as simple as that. And perhaps that is something that is followed regularly by this workforce committee. Is that still confusing?
I think that, I'm still a little bit confused by that. And I think if I understand correctly, you're wanting to know like supply versus demand, not the national statistics, but the state statistics. We can work on that. Correct. I think that's something maybe that OSHPD has and stuff. Is that correct?
That's perfect. That's correct.
Okay. We'll certainly include that in our next report. President Armenta, I'm not sure that needs to be a separate agenda item. We could probably just include that under ours.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Jed. So yeah, if that could be just a subset of your analysis, I think that would be a useful point.
Okay, thanks. Could we also add to the agenda, I don't know if it's just part of the report, but the medical consultant, if that all gets finalized from Mr. Melendez, kind of just a report from him on where that's at, if we could put that on the agenda like it was this time.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Rosanna. If you could just add that point for Mr. Melendez to update us on that.
Will do.
Any other comments, members? All right, very well. Then, Ms. Fisher, if you could open the public conduit, please.
Certainly, and we've opened up the WebEx Q&A as a means of facilitating public comment. If anyone has a suggestion or request for an agenda item for the next meeting, you can click on the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send. Or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of your WebEx screen. And I see no request for public comment. Shall I close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, very good. That concludes all of our open session items. So at this point, the board will move into closed session, and we will be adjourning from within that closed session, so there will be no more public component. Michael, is there any other housekeeping we need to do before we move into closed session and then after that adjournment?
Actually, Mr. President, it's my understanding that we don't have any items for closed session today. So I don't think we need to officially move into closed session, and we can just adjourn from here.
Ah, very well. Okay. I thought there was one item, but perhaps I'm confused. Is that correct, Rosanna? We have no closed session items?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Well, we made it through this meeting efficiently. Thank you, everybody. Always welcome everybody's comments, and all the presenters. Thank you for all of your hard work. Being on this WebEx platform is even though we're getting used to it, is a little different experience. So we're all learning, and it seems that we're getting more and more efficient at it. So everybody's preparation is staff, board, our outside presenters as well appreciated. So at this point, do we need to move for adjournment? Can I just call adjournment, Michael?
You can just call for it.
Very well. So absent any other input from anybody else, I will move for adjournment. Does anybody have any other input?
Great meeting. Thank you so much.
President mentioned before we adjourn, do
Yes.
we know, is the next meeting going to be in person or will it be remote? Do we know that yet? Or WebEx webinar?
We are authorized, my understanding is, and Rosanna could correct me if I'm wrong, we're authorized to do it WebEx. And I think that's the direction we will go, given the implied gentle nudge by that authorization. I do see utility in having some personal meetings from time to time, but I don't think we've made a decision on it yet. But my inclination is it will probably be WebEx.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments? Very well, thank you, everybody. Good meeting. We will call the meeting adjourned at this point. And thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Bye, guys.